Hi, welcome to the Results BI webinar for today. It's a 4-week webinar series on strategic planning, and my pleasure to present to you today. Hi, I'm Mark Daniels. Welcome to today's webinar. Just a little bit of background on me. I'm not going to make you read all this. However, I truly love building and helping companies grow. I've had tremendous success and been blessed with so much success over the last 5 decades. Personally, I'm married to an incredible woman. We have 5 children and 4 grandchildren, and we live on the beautiful island of Martha's Vineyard. Again, it's a 4-week series, and today I'm going to be talking a little bit about SWOT analysis and my approach to SWOT analysis. So I will touch a little bit on something I did way back in 1979 when I first started my first computer mail order company, which has a lot to do with the component of SWOT that I always do. This has been a 4-week series, as I said. Week 1, we went through vision. Week 2, we went through strategy. Week 3, execution, and week 4, leadership. This week, of course, it's execution. If you missed vision or strategy, we are going to be repeating this series just next month. You'll see vision, strategy, execution, in leadership, all repeated again. We also have a great leadership webinar coming up next week. Just talk a little bit about the importance of strategic planning. I believe it's a foundational layer that so many companies miss. You get busy in the business of being busy, running your company, and you don't take a step back to do a strategic plan or revisit the strategic plan that you did a year or 2 years ago. So it's just such an important component is to do effective strategic planning. It starts out with the vision, which is basically your dream, but dreams cannot be realized. You know, a vision is just a dream, and it really takes putting together a strategy to actually take that vision forward. And then once you have a strategy, the big challenge is execution, and that's what we're going to cover today. Is how do we put in place a layer and components that are going to help us track the execution of that strategy. Next week, leadership. How can you be an effective leader and drive that execution? A lot of what I talk about today is things I learned over the last 50 years, learned from my own businesses. Some of it I've created myself. Some of it comes from great principles found in Vern Harnish's book, Gino Wickman's book, Scaling Up by Vern Harnish. Of course, if you're a Gazelle's methodology coach or Gazelle's methodology follower, you of course know Scaling Up, and before that, Rockefeller Habits. If you're an EOS follower, or if you've read the Traction book, if you're an EOS implementer, you know, of course, the logic is very much in line with those. Let's get going. So last week we talked about vision. I'm not going to do a big recap because I really want to keep this moving along fairly quickly. Last week we talked about vision. And what is vision? Vision is your core values. I jumped out for some reason. Vision is your core values, your core purpose, and your 10-year goal, or what's sometimes referred to as a BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal. So who are you? Why are you doing it? And what is it that you're doing? So we're not going to do, again, a recap today. But we are, if you want to learn more about setting a proper vision, please join our vision webinar that'll be repeated sometime in early December. Last week we covered strategy, laying down the strategy. What are your target? What's your target market? What are your let me see if I can move this up a little bit. Your target market. What's your value discipline? Your core activities versus non-core activities. Strategic positioning. Your key benefits. Your brand promise, and long-term strategic moves. So we covered last week. Again, we'll be repeating this one in about 3 weeks' time. Today, we're going to talk about execution. Start off with this quote, great quote, a vision and a strategy aren't enough. The long-term key to success is execution, each day and every day. And that's so important. To put together a vision and a strategy and then not track your progress and not measure it each day and every day and not hold weekly meetings where you do a check-in and see how you're tracking against your actual strategy is really foolish. You have to do it each day and every day. You have to live it. The companies we work with, the ones that use our meeting tool on getting the cadence of using it on a regular, a weekly, a religious basis, they're the ones that grow the fastest. They're the ones that get the most traction from putting together a strategic plan. And by the way, while I'll talk a little bit about the results platform today, I'll do a little infomercial on the results platform at the end. Everything I talk about today can be done without our system. So don't think I'm just trying to do a pitch on results. Yes, I'd love to see you in the results platform, but today is really designed to be an educational forum and to educate you on things that you can do to help you really have an incredible 2020 as we move forward. Another quote here from Steve Jobs. To me, ideas are worth nothing unless executed. They are just a multiplier. Execution is worth millions. Remember how I started this out saying, your vision's just a dream. You first have to take that dream and then block and tackle it into strategy. And then you have to figure out how to execute that strategy. So I like starting off with numerical targets. I'd like you to get 3 or 4 high-level milestone targets down that you're tracking all the time, whether it's number of customers, whether it's it could be revenue. Doesn't always have to be revenue, by the way. In fact, revenue I don't normally push, but number of customers, revenue, high-level targets that are aligned with your 3 to 5 year strategic moves. Now, what are your 3 to 5 year strategic moves? We covered those last week, and you can come to the webinar in 2 weeks, or even just sign up for it, and we'll send you a copy of it if you miss it. So, numerical targets will measure the successfulness of your execution. They'll make sure that you're moving towards that target, moving that strategy, and actually hitting the strategy milestones that you set. So they can all be used. Numerical targets can also be used to measure your progress towards your BHAG or 10-year goal. So let's say your goal is to have 100,000 customers by 2025. Well, then that's one of the numerical targets that you'd want to measure against. You'd want to have one of your targets measuring toward your goal. And really, you want to choose numbers everyone in your company understands and could physically count if they really wanted to, right? So best practices for setting those high-level metrics. Use numbers people can actually count. Everyone in your organization must understand what that number means. Can't be some algorithm that only the executives or only the marketing team understands. Everyone should understand what that number actually means. One number, one of the three numbers, should track the milestone towards your BHAG. And targets should be aligned to your 3 to 5 year strategic moves. Don't turn your head and look at your CFO. And if your CFO is sitting with you in today's webinar, or if you're a CFO, I don't mean to insult you. I started out my career as in accounting and as a CFO. Strategy. Base your numbers on your strategy. Don't align them to your financial forecasts. Your financial forecasts are, yes, a great, they're a financial target and they're a spreadsheet, but align your targets against your strategy. Align your high-level numbers against your strategy, not against your financial forecast. Display the number over 3 time periods. You should be looking at the KPI, the high-level metrics, at least once a week or once a month, if nothing else, but align them weekly, monthly, yearly, so you can start to track how many, if you're going from 10,000 customers, or let's say 1,000 customers to 100,000 customers, how many did we gain this month, this week? How many did we gain total this month? How many have we gained this year? And make your progress visible. You don't have to have an electronic dashboard. Perhaps some of you use Power BI, great platform that we now bring into our platform, or Tableau, another great platform that we now embed into our platform. If you don't use an electronic dashboard, no big deal. Use a whiteboard. That's what I used back in 1979. I had a whiteboard and erasable markers, and every day we'd update our numbers. So make your progress visible to all your team members. And make sure you review and update your targets every quarter to reflect reality. Don't forget to update them. Don't forget to review your targets. Maybe you were off a little bit, and you do want to refresh those targets from time to time. So those are best practices. Now your SWOT. I love SWOT, but over the years I've done something, and actually Vern Harnish in his book Scaling Up recommends this as well. I like looking at trends. I think looking at trends is so important. So what I typically do when I come in and do a consulting session, we go through strengths and weaknesses, and then we do an intermission. We take pause. We pause and we go through trends. And trends are so important these days. Our world's changing at such a rapid pace. Gosh, you only have to turn on, Fox or CNN or BBC or Sky News, and we live in a very turbulent political time. We live in a turbulent financial time with tariffs and massive swings in currencies. So very important to look at trends, industry trends. Technology is advancing at such a rapid pace. Have to look at trends. Then once we look at trends, we then identify our opportunities and our major threats. So strengths, weaknesses, take pause. I sometimes do an hour and a half in the morning, 10:30 to noon, and then I bring in lunch. And over lunch, we have a fun talk about trends. What trends do we see out there in the world? Strengths. What are your core competencies? Everybody says they're people. I don't like seeing our people out there. I mean, if you have, a person that's really special, then that might be a strength. A celebrity. If somebody's got a big name, certainly could be viewed as a strength. But hopefully, it's sort of table stakes. I mean, if you've hired people, obviously you're hiring people that are strong. Obviously you're hiring people that are right for your business. So to just list the people, that's table stakes. If you haven't hired the right people, get rid of them. So what makes you uniquely different? This is really important. I talked last week about Seth Cook, I forget his last name, but he wrote a book called the Purple Cow. What makes you uniquely different? So really understand what makes you unique. That's a strength that you can market to. And then this one's so important. Think about it from the perspective of an investor, somebody that's thinking about putting money into your business. What would they see your strengths as? What could you hang your shingle on and say, these are our strengths? What would an investor say? This is this company's strengths. And then also look at your strengths in the context of your 3 to 5 year goals. So important to do that because you want to make sure you're going to be set for growth. So if your strengths are aligned with what you're doing today, that's fine. But if your strengths are not aligned with what you're going to be doing 3 to 5 years from now, you need to change them. Let's say your business is a business in New York City and you refurbish buildings that are 5 stories tall. That's your specialty. That's your sweet spot. We focus on repairing the facades of buildings that are 5 stories tall or less. But your 3 to 5 year strategic goal is to grow to buildings that are 20 stories tall. Well, your strengths might not be aligned with a 20-story tall building, right? So assess your strengths in the context of where you see your company going in the next 3 to 5 years too. Very important. Weaknesses. What is going to prevent us from executing our 3 to 5 year plan? What's going to prevent it? What's going to get in your way? What's going to be that big roadblock that just hits you and you can't grow? You're pulled to the mat on something. Maybe all your products built in China and we stop doing all trade with China. Wow, that's a real big weakness. You won't execute your 3 to 5 year plan if your product cost doubles and it's all manufactured in China if a tariff went in place. So what things do really need to be addressed? In that example, it's we need to diversify our geographic footprint and be building some of our product elsewhere. In the example I gave you, of course. So what things need to be addressed? And then I love this question again. You'll notice it's on the last slide. It's on this one too. To an investor, what would those weaknesses be? And the next one's so important. Be honest. Be brutally honest with yourself. Don't, don't be afraid to get weaknesses out on the table, whether it's your own weakness, whether it's a management team's weakness, whether it's a partner's weakness, a colleague's weakness, a business weakness. Don't be afraid to get it out there. You have to be brutally honest. Why would you ever lie to yourself? So important, okay? So what would an investor think your weaknesses are? And then be brutally honest with yourself. Now the fun part. So I'm going to have to give you a little bit of a background to this. So I graduated in 1979 from college. My degree was in accounting. And I started working in a Radio Shack dealership. And I was doing the books for a Radio Shack dealer in West Milford. And he had just purchased this business just a year before. In 1978, he had purchased this business. He was really struggling, and I came in at first as a college intern, and subsequently became his lead accountant, his only accountant, or bookkeeper, I should say, and doing the books for him. We'll come back to 1979. But let's talk about trends in the 1970s. If you're listening in from outside of the country, if you're not in the United States, if you're listening in from Canada or perhaps Europe or Australia or New Zealand, where you have a lot of customers, New Jersey is one of the 50 states. And in northern New Jersey in the 1970s, in 1973, they lowered the drinking age in New Jersey to 18. Why is that important? Because the state next to New Jersey is the state of New York, and the drinking age had always been 18 there. Since the days of Prohibition, the drinking age had been 18. So people would leave New Jersey every Friday night, every Saturday night, and every Sunday, and they would drive to New York State, where they could drink legally. And then they drive back home to New Jersey afterwards. Can only imagine the accidents that happened. A lot of young people, a lot of people of all ages died during those years because they'd get drunk out of state. They drive back. 1973, due to pressure, the New Jersey legislation, pressure from the Vietnam vets that were coming back from fighting a war. They could die for us, but they couldn't drink. They could, go to war, but they couldn't drink. And also New Jersey realized that these people were leaving and revenue was leaving the state and going to the state of New York. And that was state and alcohol taxes that the state of New Jersey could in fact collect. They knew it would reduce accidents, so they lowered the drinking age to 18. That's the first thing that happened. Now, the Radio Shack dealership in West Milford, New Jersey, follow carefully, was on a Greenwood Lake, New York, where New Jersey and New York butt up against each other. And people stopped driving through West Milford because they wanted to drive. They were driving through West Milford to go to the bars in Greenwood Lake, New York, where they could drink. And by 1975, those bars were failing. And I got to tell you, there wasn't a month that one of those bars didn't catch on fire or close down. They were failing, and they were going out of business. As a result of that, Warner Brothers had this major amusement park up there, an amusement area, not a park. Yeah, it was in the park, but basically it was a zoo that you could drive through and see animals from all over the world. Monkeys swinging over your car, and zebras running through the fields and whatnot. So Warner Brothers closes Jungle Habitat. By the way, they laid off over 400 people the day they closed Jungle Habitat because that's how many people they employed. It's a major source of revenue to the town of West Milford, New Jersey. 1978, the big cataclysmic thing happened to the local economy. Ford closed the second largest manufacturing plant in the world. It was based in Mahwah, New Jersey, and they closed it. Boom, banged it up, laid off everybody. All of a sudden, 1978, 1/3 of the total population of West Milford was out of work, and the surrounding economy was in depression. It was really a tough place to live in. And obviously, here I am doing the books for this Radio Shack dealership that was making money just a year or two earlier, but was now failing. So, how can we react to these trends? How can we react to these trends? How can we capitalize on them? What do they tell us as we move on to opportunities and threats? Well, here I am running this Radio Shack dealership, and I recognize that, unless we could bring in people from outside of West Milford, New Jersey, this company was dead. So, what was the opportunity I capitalized on? We opened a computer mail order company because Radio Shack was starting to sell the Radio Shack Model 1 and Model 2 computers. They were the first to market with personal home computers, and they were flying out the doors like hotcakes. We'd have people driving from 3 or 4 towns away to come buy a computer when it came into stock. We had a waiting list. So we launched an ad in the New York Times, in the Wall Street Journal, actually. And we launched the world's first computer mail order company. It was one of the first 3 in the United States. And we grew that business to $80 million a year. From this little Radio Shack dealership doing just $600,000 a year to an $80 million a year business by capitalizing on a terrible trend, a terrible threat, destroying the business. And we've recognized an opportunity. Let's get outside of this town and let's go global. Let's go first national, then Canada. Before we knew it, we were shipping all over the world, these computers. We recognized the opportunity. We took advantage of the trends that we saw going on. I venture to say, if Joe Russo, the owner of the Radio Shack dealership in West Milford, if he had seen these trends early on, if he'd been going through a trend analysis back in 78, 77, when he was thinking about buying this Radio Shack dealership, he probably wouldn't have purchased it. He signed his house off against it. So that's why trends are so important. I love trends. I love spending time on them. This is where you're going to identify your biggest threats, your biggest opportunities. So it's key to do trends when you're doing your SWOT analysis. Opportunities. What are some of the big opportunities that you can leverage in the next 3 to 6 months? I want you to think back through the trends. Look back through the trends. What's the opportunities? You have to be creative. What are some of the opportunities that are sitting there that maybe you haven't thought about when you're looking at those trends? It's got to be a project or an investment in an investment in this opportunity will move you forward and towards your 3 to 5 year goals. I don't like short-term opportunities. I like the big opportunity wins that not only give us gain now, but are moving us towards our 3-year goal. By the way, great book written by Shannon, I think her name is Byrne, called 3HAG. 3, the number 3, H-A-G. Your 3-year highly achievable goal, 3HAG. That's why I like, if you read this book, you'll understand why it's so important to be looking at your 3-year goal and leveraging your opportunities. So they're not only going to give you an immediate impact to your business as it sits today, but that it's aligned with your 3-year goal. Okay. Write a short, concise opportunity statement. Get them all up there on the board, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Get them all up there on the board. I'll talk about picking them in a few minutes. Short, concise. You're not going to write up the whole opportunity at this point in time. Just an opportunity statement at this point in time. Threats. What are the threats out there that would hurt us? Think back to the trends. What will prevent us from moving forward and impact our operating model? What are the big 5 that are likely to affect your company? What external threats are out there that would kill your company? Kill it. Well, I gave you an example earlier. All your products made in China, and something happens with our relationship with China, tariffs get all out of whack, and Chinese say that product's not going to come into you, or if it does come into you, it's going to come into you at a crazy price. That would kill your company. In the case of the Radio Shack dealership that I talked about, what external threats are out there? 1/3 of the town population out of business. People on food stamps. As many people were on food stamps percentage-wise in West Milford as there were in some major cities at that point in time. The economy was dead. So that's a big external threat that's out there. By the way, during that period of time, the cost of money was starting to shoot up too. So it was hard to borrow. hard to buy time. So threats. Now, once you've gone through that SWOT analysis, you have to decide what you need to do in the next quarter. You should have a far richer understanding of your company. You've gone through your vision. 2 weeks ago, we went through that. Again, if you didn't sit in on that one, we're going to redo it in a few weeks. So you're going to have to decide, you've gone through the vision. Then you've gone through the strategy, right? And we went through that last week. And now we've gone through a SWOT with trends analysis. So you should have a really good understanding of your company. It's amazing how many executives I talk to after they've gotten to this point say, wow, I don't know why I didn't do this years ago. This is great. You have to invest time in your strategy. It's the most important component. It's a foundational layer. So when you invest this time, it's going to come back to you tenfold. I promise you. So now you have a rich understanding of your company. This is where you start the process of what you're going to do next quarter. So it's time to pick your strategic projects, the ones you need to accomplish in the next quarter to move your business forward. So the first thing we're going to do is review the SWOT. All these things written down. We have our opportunities, our threats, our strengths, our weaknesses. They're all there. So first, leverage or build on your strengths. You might want to build on the things that you do well, that are really working well for you, and give you a competitive advantage that'll move you towards your goal and your 3-year goal. Your weaknesses. Fix or improve the areas. Find a project that's going to fix an area where you are weak. By the end of the quarter, you might be able to cross that right off the list, or at least reduce the impact or drag it has on your business. Opportunities. You've identified areas where you can make a major move. You might want to seize on one of these opportunities. Again, make sure you're thinking back to those trends. Mitigate or reduce any threats. Make sure you're thinking back to those trends. You might want to take an action to reduce or protect you against a trend that is coming down at you like a freight train and can literally kill your business a year or two from now. You need to mitigate that risk now. So start to make a list of projects. But now, the challenging part. Rule of 3. You're only allowed to work on 3 projects in the next quarter. 3 strategic projects for the next 3 months. Now, if you listen to my other webinars, I often use a term, narrow the focus. You have to narrow your focus as an executive. You can't manage 10, 20, 30 projects. Get it down to the 3 most important ones. Own them as an executive. Own them as a leader. Drive them forward. Try to do 10, it's too much. Jim Collins in one of his books says, if you have more than 3, you have none. If you have more than 3, you have none. So really narrow your focus. Each project should be about addressing an issue in your SWOT analysis and moving you in the direction of your 3 to 5 year strategic moves, and hopefully towards your big, hairy, audacious goal as well, or your 10-year goal. Start with the most important issue first. If you could only pick one thing this quarter, what would you do to move things forward? Stephen Jobs, similar approach. He'd get the list down to 10, and he'd circle 2. He'd circle 2. He didn't even believe in the rule of 3. He'd circle 2. Call these things projects because it'll take several weeks or months to complete. So it's a project. And again, narrow the focus. Most businesses just try to do too much, and as a result, they execute poorly. 90% of all strategic plans fail. 90% of all strategic plans fail. Why? Harvard Business School does a study every other year. Due to poor execution. It's the number one reason. The vision might be great, the strategic plan might be great, but it's not executed poorly. The best way to execute well is to narrow your focus. Your challenge is to identify no more than 3 to address this quarter and define the specific strategic projects that will move your company forward. Describe each of those projects in detail. What will you need to do and achieve to make that project a success? What are those important milestones? What are they? What's got to happen to move this project forward? Break it down into milestones. That's the rule of 3. And finally, an acronym, SMART. Be smart. First off, your goal has to be specific and it has to be stated so that everybody understands it. Everybody should understand exactly what that project means. It's got to be measurable. If it's not measurable, what's the point of it? You can't figure out whether it happened or didn't happen. It's got to be a measurable goal. Figure out a way to measure the success of it. The A is for achievable. You should be able to accomplish this goal by the due date. I hate stretch goals. Hate them. Because if you miss them too frequently, the entire team and your entire staff gets into the methodology and thinking process of saying, well, Mark always sets these stretch goals and we never hit them. So it becomes the norm not to hit them. No, we want them achievable. We want them real. We want them to be important, but we don't want them to be ridiculously crazy, so it's a stretch goal, okay? I'm not saying it can't be challengeable, but it's got to be achievable, okay? If it can't be done by the due date, you can also break a project in half. Let's say the project is to add another floor of rooms to your hotel, or to add a rooftop bar. Well, that might take, because of the planning and the approvals, that might take a year, 2 years, but it's important because you know it's going to add an incredible revenue to your company. So what do? You break it down. This month we're going to work on, this quarter we're going to work on getting the permits in order and getting the funding lined up or the financing lined up. Next quarter we're going to work on selecting a contractor and signing the contract. The next month, we're going to work on, you get the next quarter. So you get it. You can break up a big, long project, okay? So scale it down, break it up into multiple projects if you need to. Or a lot of people say the R is for realistic. However, that means the same thing as achievable. Relevance is what we're looking for here. Is this project relevant? Does it address the current reality listed in your SWOT analysis? And does it move you in the direction of the 3 to 5 year strategic goals? And eventually move you towards your BHAG. A good project, again, I said this before, immediate short-term results, but it should also help you create the future. It must be relevant to your chosen strategy. You might not be able to see this last one. Time-bound. The difference between a dream and a goal is that a goal has a deadline. So those are the strategic projects. Review your SWOT, rule of 3, and be smart. Once you have your strategic projects down, you then have to put together metrics. These are called key performance indicators, KPIs, I don't care if you call them KPIs. There's a book written by John Doerr where he talks about OKRs. An OKR is an objective with key measurable results. O, objective, K, KPIs, or key, and M, measurable. Objectives with key measurements. It's just alphabet soup. It's nothing more than a strategic objective with the ability to measure the success. He touts it as some type of new approach that was designed by Intel and Google to help them grow. Yeah, it's got a cute little name, and it is very effective, and it works, because what is it? You're setting an objective, and you're tracking your key measurable results, your KPIs. So KPIs, whatever you call the numbers you're going to track, they're going to measure the performance in every functional area of your organization. The things you do every day to create leads, make sales, provide products and services, and keep your customers happy, grow cash, and make profits. We call this stuff business as usual. So you'll be tracking some business as usual KPIs, but you'll also be measuring KPIs against your projects to make sure that your projects are successful. Once you determine the metrics for every functional area, you should be able to distill it to a smaller subset of metrics that you deem to be critical success factors. These are the important drivers on your current operating model. They should be on your electronic dashboard if you have one. Hopefully you have one, you're using results. If you're not using results, that's okay. They can be on your Power BI dashboard. If they're not on your Power BI dashboard, they can be in your Tableau dashboard or ClickFolio. Or again, they can be on a whiteboard where your accountant or your bookkeeper walks in every day, or every day a different department lead comes in and fills out their 4 key metrics on this whiteboard. Keep them visible. The most important drivers of your current operating model. So it's right there in front of you every day, every week. And hold the meeting. Hold the meeting around that dashboard. I'll talk a little bit in a few moments about the results platform. We bring the dashboard into every meeting. Why? That's where you hold your staff accountable. That's where you hold yourself accountable to the numbers. You need to include data in every meeting. Meetings are pointless without data. Meetings are useless without data. If you don't have data, don't meet. Need the data. Bring the data in the meeting. We do that in the results platform. If you're not using the results platform, gather your team around that whiteboard. Gather your team around a big screen monitor if you're using a program like Power BI or Tableau. Bring it into an electronic meeting if you have remote staff. Leadership. Next week, I'm going to talk about leadership. You can have a great vision. You can have a great strategy. You can even have gone through all this execution, but it takes a powerful, effective leader to actually execute that strategy. Next week, I'm going to talk about some tips, tricks, and have some very direct statements for leaders out there. I don't mean to insult anybody, but some very direct leadership statements and guidance, because it comes down to you, the leaders, to drive that execution. So while the vision's important, the strategy takes a lot of time. The execution layer is so important to build. It really comes down to driving that execution, and it takes an effective leader to drive that execution. I told you I was going to do a brief infomercial on results. We have a one-page strategic plan. I'm going to jump out to it ever so quickly here. You can go to our website and you can watch a little video about the results one-page strategic plan. You can get a free trial for 15 days free. It's $30 a month. It's just $1 a day. It includes access for you and up to 4 executives, and it'll bring you through everything that we've taught over the last 3 weeks: the vision, the strategy, and execution. And you'll be able to follow Key this into the system. It gives you helpful guidance and pushes you through putting together your vision, strategy, and execution. And we don't even ask for a credit card. It is it's just $1 a day, $30 a month. We bill you monthly. Also, special offer. If you sign up for the one-page plan, I will do a one-on-one, 1-hour review of your plan. It's tremendous value, and it's available to the first 10 signups starting right now. Visit resultsbi.com. Go to that page I showed you right there. Boom, right there. Watch that video. Click Get Your Free Trial now. Won't even be asked for a credit card for 15 days. So if you don't like it, it's not your cup of tea, no big deal. I think you'll find it super powerful and super helpful in helping you put together your strategic plan for this 2020. If you already have a plan in place, key it into our system and review it with your team. If you're working with a consultant, have them use the platform and key your strategic plan right into our platform. We work with a lot of third-party consultants. So that's my infomercial. I will do a 1-hour review of your plan. Sit with you for an hour, either answer specific questions that you had as you went through the plan, maybe do a deep dive into a specific area, just spend an hour chatting about your business. I'm learning more about you and learning how I can help you leverage the strategic plan to achieve the goals you're looking for. So again, thank you. Again, we're redoing this webinar series next month, Vision, Strategy, Execution, and Leadership. It'll be all through November. I think that the last session we might have to put into the first week of December due to the Thanksgiving holiday, but it'll be November and into December. Very powerful. I encourage you to sign up for next week's leadership. So thank you. Again, this is Mark Daniels. I'm the CEO of Results BI. And we love helping companies grow at Results, and I'm wishing you results. Thank you for your time today. Bye-bye.